Friends, we have made it to the holiest, most intensely beautiful and special week of the year. This is Holy Week for all of us, and I am honored to be coming to you to talk with you a little bit about what it means to fully embrace Holy Week and how taking up our cross is the work that we must do as we consider what it means to be faithful to the faith of the week that we are experiencing now. A lot of us give things up for Lent. If not this year, at least most years we do things like that. And giving things up for Lent can feel challenging if you give up chocolate or alcohol or Netflix or Facebook for the entire 40 days of Lent. That can feel like a challenge, but it is not the same thing as a cross. That is not what it means to take up your cross. And I think a lot of us perhaps thought that that's what taking up our cross was disciplining ourselves, being willing to go without things, being willing to struggle and suffer a little bit. That is not, though, what taking up your cross means. The reason Holy Week is the holiest week of the year is because it is the week that Jesus did not just show self-discipline, he showed complete acceptance for the most impossible obstacle that was on his path. What he was facing was his unjust murder. And even though he had the power to zap those Roman soldiers with lightning bolts, to blow Pilate away with a powerful wind, although he had the power to undo his shackles by virtue of being God, he did not, as St. Paul says in the scriptures in the Philippians, he did not deem using his godly powers something that he should do. He didn't see the status of God as something he should grasp at. Instead, he emptied himself. He became like a slave. He gave himself over to the most impossible, unjust kind of suffering imaginable. And that is what taking up your cross means for us too. Whatever is the hardest kind of suffering in your life, that is what we are meant to take up. Maybe in your case, it is an illness that you have. There are people in our parish with multiple sclerosis. There's people in our parish with ALS. There's people in our parish with cancer. There's folks with terrible rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, some of the most difficult and painful medical situations I've ever heard of. And we are called in our feebleness, in our aching joints, in our blood work gone awry, in our diagnosis that's very frightening, we are called to take up our cross. We are called to face that suffering, to be willing to look unflinchingly at our diagnosis. It's incredibly challenging, hard, scary work. But that's why we focus on the cross of Christ. Because there's nothing we could go through that would be more absurd than that. Nothing we could go through that's more absurd than that kind of journey, especially considering who he was. Maybe your struggle is not medical at all. Maybe it's relational. There are people in our parish who have children that won't talk to them. We have people in our parish who have parents that have disowned them. We have people who have been betrayed by a spouse. We have people that have been cheated on, people who have contracted diseases from the spouse or the partner that was vowed to love and care for them. They gave them diseases from their own infidelities. We know people in our parish who have felt completely abandoned because of something that happened in a relationship. We know people who've been disgraced. We know young people who have been blackmailed through dishonest, inappropriate, cruel methods by people who used to express affection for them. We know teenagers who've been blackmailed because there's images of them on a cell phone from someone who used to care about them but no longer does. And these images of them with their clothes off are now being used as extortion. There are so many hard things that people go through with relationships. This Holy Week, we are called to unite those things to the cross of Christ. We are called to know that however betrayed we have not been more betrayed than he was, because he came here only to love us, only to forgive us, only to show us the way. And what we did in return was so unthinkably cruel and wrong. Whatever it is that is the most unbearable suffering that you have or I have, it is that we are meant to offer to God this Holy Week. One of the most remarkable things that someone taught me in the parish, it's funny that it took me 45 years to learn this lesson, but someone in our parish who's very advanced in her practice of the 12 steps taught me, acceptance does not mean liking or coming to see the value of a situation. When we accept a situation, let's say we have to accept a divorce, it doesn't mean that we think the other person now had a point. It doesn't mean that we now think it's okay that we've been abandoned or betrayed or hurt. It has nothing to do with liking the outcome of a situation. Acceptance is not liking it. Acceptance is facing that this is how it is. Acceptance means, as I heard someone else say recently, getting comfortable with a problem that cannot be solved. Do you hear how powerful that is? Acceptance is getting comfortable with a problem that cannot be solved. Think of a problem in your life that cannot be solved, something that you just rage against. Acceptance is when we choose to become as comfortable as we possibly can with that exact thing. So, this Holy Week, we must take up our cross. We must face what is hardest to face in life, not to punish ourselves, not to torture ourselves, not because we are supposed to suffer. Taking up our cross is not choosing the suffering that we will bear. It is accepting the suffering that found us without our permission. Your cross is never something you would choose. It's something that chose you and that you wish did not choose you, but that you cannot escape or avoid. Dear friends, on this Holy Week, I ask God to help all of us face our crosses with hope. May God bless you and bless all who live in the shadow of the cross of Christ.